Greetings, it's Doc Griffin, your swing surgeon director of club fitting operations, and it's time again for the doctor's house call. We're continuing part 6 of our shaft myth series, and today we're dealing with the concept that the more expensive a shaft is, the better its quality and performance will be. Well, first of all, let's go back and look at the progression of shaft cost. I mean, 4, 5, 6 years ago, $40, $50 for a shaft people thought was really high. Now we're getting into where seriously you can buy shafts that will cost you upwards of $1,000. And the concept that the marketplace has is that these expensive shafts are better in quality and better in performance. And I've used this for a lot of times. I mean, people call me or we're doing a fitting, they say, well, is this a good shaft? Is this a good shaft? Is this a good shaft? Folks, there really aren't any bad shafts. I mean, if we're talking about aftermarket stuff. Now, there are some bad shafts. I mean, there's some cheap stuff that are just poorly made, and the quality of workmanship that goes into the shaft was suspect. But as far as what's out there in the marketplace as aftermarket shafts, there really aren't any poorly made bad shafts. And they range from $20 up to, like I said, thousands. My personal definition of a good shaft is one that fits the player. The overall weight, the overall kick, the overall torque, and the feel of the shaft. Getting the shaft that is right for the individual is, to me, paramount, and that's what makes it a good shaft. That doesn't mean that shaft XYZ is not a good shaft. It may mean that XYZ is not very good for you. I'm going to give you the 5 basic specification that determines the performance differences between shafts. Mass, which is weight, of course, the overall stiffness, and you can consider that flex. I deal with vibrational frequencies, but the overall stiffness of the shaft. The bend profile, which is the distribution or the stiffness of that shaft throughout the whole length of the shaft. When you're talking flex, basically you're talking about what happens under just the butt end of the shaft. And really, the entire shaft is at work when you're swinging a golf club. Therefore, the entire shaft has to be considered. How is the weight distributed? What's the balance point? These are keys. And another term is torsional stiffness, or the actual torque, or the resistance of the tip when force is applied, i.e. hitting a golf ball. The stability of that tip not to move when you're hitting, or in some cases you need it to give a little more if you're a slower swing speed person, or else it's going to feel like you're hitting a brick. So these things that go into making a shaft will determine how the graphite layers are laid on the mandrel, which is actually like a steel rod, and then they come in. The engineers have a schematic, if you will, of how the graphite layers are laid and where and how many and what shape, direction, and all kind of stuff. So let's look at the actual cost of a shaft. To make a shaft very lightweight with a fair amount of stiffness, in other words, not just whippy, and to have a low torque, that's going to take extra work and a different fiber in order to produce that shaft. So yes, that's going to be expensive. But in the overall long-term scheme of things in the marketplace, I want to quote something from a gentleman that I think, and this was the backbone and the crux of this whole myth series, Mr. Tom Washon, who I think is, a veritable genius when it comes to golf clubs and the design and the building. When he talks about the cost of shafts, yes, some of the high dollar shafts are actually made from more expensive raw composite materials. But before that, he says that standard modulus graphite, which is low cost raw material, can be used to make virtually any shaft with any configuration that you need. So, and then he goes on to say, but very few of these expensive shafts that you see today on the market need to be made with such expensive materials to achieve their weight, flex, bend profile, balance point, and torque specifications. We, meaning the Washon Company, has measured the specifications of literally thousands of different shafts, and from their experience, they have yet to see a $100 to $300 shaft that could not be duplicated for its weight, flex, bend profile, balance point, and torque, and sold at a normal profit in the industry for an aftermarket price of $50 or less. So, that just makes you think, what is the motivation of a lot of the shaft companies as far as these high dollar shafts? They obviously have a higher profit margin, and again, they're trying to convince you that by this higher price, their quality and performance are superior, and it's just not so. Well, that's it for me for today, and as always, we want to thank you for your support and participation. And remember, better golf is just a fit away.